Anyway, so speaking of streaming, now finally, I know it's been a while. It's been a long while because I know it. The that season aired at the beginning of the year now. Finally, now I could talk about season three of Cobra Kai. And because it's been out for like about a month now. I don't want to spend too long talking about it, but I just want to make mention of it for two reasons. One, because I covered season one when it came out on YouTube Red. Yes, it was on
Right.
YouTube Red, right? And I didn't get around to watching season two because I heard through the grapevine back then. That was like what, 2019, right?
Right.
That
Well, I
Netflix was going to put out season three. So I was like, well, I could just kind of wait it out a bit, right?
Right.
But I didn't expect that the show would have come out, New Year's Day. So
Right.
I know a lot of people watch it out and like, oh my god, watching it half a day, it was so awesome, right? I didn't watch it. I did not watch it New Year's. I watched it later on. Actually a few days before. I mean, before even talking about this. But second reason is that as far as best of the year goes by, just get it out of the way. I kind of had to put the season up there, boy. So
Okay.
here's the
Right.
funny thing about this show. Right? The funny thing about this show is that I am not the biggest fan of the Karate Kids series.
Yeah.
I know I should be, right. And
No,
I
not
know
really. I
like
mean,
like when it came out back in like what, well, the first one I talk about, right, when it came out in 1984, it was a huge hit. Critically acclaimed. Roger Ebert called it one of the best movies of the year and all that kind of stuff. But for me, when I saw it, I was like, yeah, I get it's a great show, but I don't love it, love it, love it, love it. And it all boils down to one specific reason, right? Maybe you can relate, right? It has nothing to do with kids being bullies and beating up on other kids and all that kind of stuff. I still kind of amazed to this day that something like that actually got a PG rating. But remember, it's the time to us, so it's not
right.
like, oh, it was some kind of exploitative film or anything like that. But mainly is because it just felt like 80s Rocky. Sorry,
Right.
like an 80s version of Rocky, but just with, instead of an Italian American man, we have an Italian American kid, and we have this Asian man teaching him how to fight it, basically. So, like, when you go in and you hear the word Karate Kid, you expect it, because we come from that, that we come from martial arts, and we come from watching kick up and all that kind of stuff, as we call it now. So when you see the Karate Kid and you watch it and you get this drama basically, but it have a little action here or there, like, yeah, good but kind of wanted more action from it. You know what I mean? But over the years, though, I really did grow to appreciate it and understand what it's going for. So no, it's not really like Rocky. It has more heart to it, basically, but it has that same particular theme, though. That whole underdog thing,
Right.
rising to the occasion, all that kind of stuff, though. But still, to me, it just didn't click. And I think the main reason is just because of the era, right? Like I was born in the 80s basically, but it's not like I was watching a bunch of 80s movies when I was a kid, you know what I mean? I was more in tune with 90s films, right? So,
Right.
when you saw stuff like Karate Kid and, part two and part three, which weirdly enough, I did not even see, but I own the book adaptation of it. Because it was like an actual bookstore. I think it was on Henry Street in Port of Spain, where I was like, oh, okay, the Karate Kid Part 3. And I
Yeah. I
never
saw.
saw
That's
3,
what.
but I
That's
saw
what.
1 and 2 on TV. So let me
Right.
buy this book. And I
True
was
is the
like, all
one.
right.
Yeah. True is the one with Hilary Swank, right?
No, but I'll get to that in a bit. But
Okay. Right.
no, 3 was where, okay, so 1 was where he met Mr. Miyagi, played by the late great Pat Morita. 2
Right.
was when he went to Okinawa.
Right.
And 3 was when, well, he came back and he had to fight another Cobra Kai member, somebody
Okay.
way worse than Johnny Lawrence, who, yes, is the one of the main characters of Cobra Kai. But
Right.
the next Karate Kid, though, I remember when that came out, that was in 94. That was with Paprika and Hilary Swank, right? And I remember that show, like, it was like I saw the ads for it. Eventually came out on TV. I watched it. I kind of forgot about it. And it
Right.
kind of feels like everybody else forgot about that movie, Jen, because that didn't really do anything, Jen. Like, people just kind of felt comfortable with the trilogy. They felt comfortable
Right.
with Ralph Macchio, you know, as Daniel, that dynamic between him and Mr. Miyagi, but didn't care for Hilary Swank at all, Jen. So it's almost like they just
Right.
kind of sweep that under the rug, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
I
anyway,
remember seeing.
your thoughts on the series, if it did anything to
Yeah,
you or not?
I vaguely remember like I kind of like the first film is the most popular film. It's one of those films that you know through sheer cultural osmosis, and then you finally watch it like, oh, okay, that's the film. Okay,
Yeah,
and
it's like that. It's like, oh yeah,
right
that's the film. Okay, you
then
know what I
I
mean?
have like
Or
I
I should say also too, like, as much as they were going for Rocky, you know, even if they deny it, yes, they go for Rocky. It still can't match the impact of that Rocky movie, like the first one.
right
You
right
know, as try as it could. But anyway,
yeah same, yeah. So and then the second and third films I have almost no workable memory for. I swear I see it on cable once. Maybe it's like, oh, this is supposed to be the second one, whatever. And then I remember seeing the Hillary Swank film on in yeah, this is like a real callback, right? So Gulf City had a cinema. Does
yeah,
anyone know
yes, it
that?
did. Mm-hmm.
Yes, it did.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw
Yep.
this doubled with Blank Man. Tyson Farmer.
Wow, both
Yeah,
movies I saw on TV.
yeah.
You actually went to cinema to see it, you lucky bastard.
Yeah, I remember seeing Blank Man in theaters. I thought it was hilarious. It's a stupid movie, stupid as hell. But
It is.
I remember seeing them double. And yeah, that's the only time I remember the movie. It's like, okay, the Karate Kid is a girl now. All right, well, they do not notice. Like, nothing. Then the Jin Smith film is like, all right, I thought that was not as bad as I expected it to be. The only issue with it is that he
It
didn't use
was a
no
karate dog.
it had no karate in it. Yeah, that's the only problem. Like, that is a little quick fix to the script, right? They just have him use a karate move at the end because he learned a karate move from somebody. That is it. Quick fix. Didn't do it. Whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah, whatever.
but it was still fun, and
Yeah,
you got a nice
I
dynamic with Jackie Chan and
right,
Gene
exactly.
Smith. Yeah,
I didn't expect, right, exactly. I thought because, yeah, Gene Smith as a person, yeah, he's actually a pretty talented dude, for what it is. I actually grown to respect him a lot more over the years. Uh,
yeah. I mean, his music is a quiet taste, but
right, right.
I could fuck with it. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Right. To me, he's have some decent beat selection, blah blah blah. But like, when he was an actor, I'm surprised he hasn't done more films because his two big roles, his two little roles, except for After Earth, that was a disaster. But
Yep.
the first two big movies he did was pretty good for what they were. I enjoyed them, so I had no problem with any of that. But yeah, so that is a franchise for me. It's one of those franchises that I get why it's popular, but I just never get into it. So whatever.
Yeah, you really had to be like a child of the 80s. And, well, I mean, like a child, like you were going to school, and you were going
Yeah,
to cinemas and all that kind of stuff. Like, but me, I was too young for that, right? But whatever.
yeah,
So yeah, when Cobra Kai, sorry, when Cobra Kai came out, now I was like, all right, we doing the nostalgia thing, all right. It's popular. We've seen it with stuff like Stranger Things, which I believe came out. Yes, it came out before Cobra Kai came out, but this was like one of the first, which was actually based on actual franchise that is associated with the 80s. Because once again, like I say, nobody really care about the next Karate Kid at all, right? With Hilary Swank. So yeah, I saw season one of it, and I thoroughly enjoyed it though. And what I
right,
love though is that they took basically the bad guy from the first one. That would be William Zabka, who played Johnny Lawrence, and basically show it's basically like, if you've been bullied, this is like your ultimate dream. Now just seeing the bully in question having like the worst life ever, just everything
right,
just going to shit, you know what I mean? Like clearly he's still living in the 80s, but he just so he's just basically analog basically right now, right?
right,
And through some circumstances, he's actually motivated now to rebuild, the Cobra Kai dojo, which is his master, John Kreese. You know, what I mean, what the big body from the first movie, well, the first and third one, if I'm not mistaken. But apparently he was dead, so it's like, well, cool, I just gotta do this now, and it's for a new generation of kids who've been picked on and bullied and all that kind of stuff, right? And in the process, he forms this bond with this Latino kid called right, Miguel Diaz, right? And yeah, you know what I mean? So basically you're getting the repeat of the first movie. Well, sorry, the formula of the first movie. Instead of Miyagi and Daniel, you're getting Johnny and Miguel, and that was the cell.
right, right.
But you also have Daniel's character, he's his car salesman now, and
Right.
what I mean, the man have it made, right? You know what I mean? Lovely wife, lovely daughter, bratty son. The man living it big, right? And of course, when he sees Cobra Kai come back, it's like, no, you know what I mean? And you realize, oh shit, it's you, and that rivalry restarts basically, right? And that is basically what led on to the second season, and it's just basically all these kids kind of choosing sides now. So at the end of the first season, basically Daniel reopens the Miyagi-Do dojo,
Right.
and some kids join, not too much, but basically the Cobra Kai is way more successful. You know what I mean? It's just that butting of heads. And what's so funny about the series as a whole is that they will always find some kind of way to just have Daniel and Johnny just meet. As also
Right.
the most random opportunities, like in the real world, that would never happen. Man, in this show, yeah, they would just come through, meet up, and be like, ready to fight or ready to cuss each other out there.
Right.
But in a nutshell, what happens with season three though is that the aftermath of season two, which pretty much involved a full out brawl at the high school where Miguel and Daniel's daughter goes to, right? Essentially, just think oh gosh, I can't think of the fight again right now. I think the only one that comes to mind is rival schools, kids actually parents. It's just basically this all out brawl, in school, everybody just doing karate, but it's essentially Cobra Kai versus Miyagi-Do, and it's just all this fighting and all that kind of stuff. It's pretty kick-ass, by the way. But afterwards, though, there's sort of like a ban on the actual tournament itself, the All Valley tournament for the first movie, right? Because that was a
Right.
thing in the first season, and everybody's all against it. That I would say like the dojo leaders, all that kind of stuff, sensei, sorry, against that, right? But at the same time now, what was revealed in the end of season one, and this was a thing in season two, John Kreese is actually alive.
Right.
And he comes in basically, and yeah, he's still as aggressive as ever. I'll talk about his character in a bit, right? But essentially, he ends up kicking, like literally kicking, metaphorically, sorry, kicking out Johnny from his own dojo. So now Kreese is running it, John. So yeah, Johnny's down his luck again. He's trying to figure out what to do, and he forms this unlikely alliance with Daniel, and basically it's just them trying to stop John, right? And it's all these other things involving, side characters. Well, Miguel, he actually broke his back in the process of that actual fight, and
Right.
it's a matter. Yeah, yeah, it was crazy. Johnny himself had to train, had to more or less help Miguel to walk again, and it's cheesy, but it works. The whole Miyagi Daniel comparison thing works there. Um, Daniel's daughter, she's a little hesitant as well too. She actually has some kind of weird PTSD. What happens is that this new girl who joins the Cobra Kai dojo, she pretty much like nearly kicks her ass basically, like to the close of like killing her in a sense. Like she just has that sort of like she's just kind of scared of her, and it's just all these things going on. Jay, but I'll stop. So what makes this show work, and it just continues here, is all the stuff that is just all the stuff I described in here, right? It's basically what makes the show work is that they are aware of the 80s tropes that they're throwing at you, right?
Right.
They just put it all in your face, right? Like the rock music, the dialogue, the way how fights start, the way how characters learn how to fight literally like about a week. I mean, it just does all the tropes, right? But it's self-aware enough to be like, yeah, we know those are tropes though, but don't think the whole show is gonna be like that. We're self-aware enough to kind of dial back on it just a little bit, right? And those are mostly for some genuinely heartfelt moments, because yeah, I mean the show really has a lot of heart to it, right?
Yeah.
It's especially in terms of how these adults who pretty much try to figure out their way in life, what I mean, realizing that, the 80s are gone, you know what I mean, and, they have to get in touch with the real world and, what kids are into right now could
Right.
still find ways to get these kids off of, doing crime or doing, performing acts of violence on each other and all that kind of stuff, and giving them purpose, giving them meaning and all that kind of stuff, and more or less helping them through, helping them as well. So in a way, it is very much the core of, the franchise as a whole. Old sensei meets young, student, or sorry, young kid who becomes a student, and in the process of them teaching the kid karate, they learn something about themselves. You know what I mean?
Right.
So they become that sort of surrogate father to that character thing, and they just keep doing that, right? But you really feel it with Johnny's character as well. I would make the argument that it does lean a little bit more on Johnny, even though technically it's his story. But I more kind of see it as both Johnny and Daniel as well. But in this case, because um, Johnny pretty much lost everything though. You really had to see how he kind of picks himself back up, right? In terms of John Kreese himself, who's played by Martin Cove, he's still very intimidated. He still has this. Yeah, I mean, he's just still that 80s tough guy, Dread. But what I love here is that they actually show his backstory because, surprise, surprise, he actually served in the Vietnam War. And one
Right.
thing I really love about this show here is that it does what it does so brilliantly, Trent, is that it just takes all these 70s and 80s sort of how to say, all these ideals, basically all these American ideals that
Yeah.
fueled men in the 70s and
Right.
80s, and just kind of flip
Yeah.
it on their heels,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
whole macho, yeah, you gotta
Right.
fight, man, it's for your
So,
country, man, and it just flips
right.
it like, no, this is dumb, Trent. Like, this is
Right.
archaic, you know what I mean? Come on,
Right. But it does like the cycles of violence stuff usually.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. 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 Right.
So Kreese himself literally is treating his students like they the army trade, and
Right.
it makes sense. It actually makes sense. You know what I mean? While Johnny was just like, you know what? Come on, don't be a son of pussies, man. You want to be a badass. You want to be a badass like me. But in his case is, in the 80s, this is how you had to be. You had to be tough. You had to be listening to, Metallica and, all that
Right.
kind of stuff. This is what it meant to be a man, a male, basically, in the 80s. That is just him throwing that on these kids, even though. Even though we have, well, in this case, in season 2, he had two girls in the group, but still, it was just like, no, this is what you need to do, man, and
Right.
it works, and it gives some genuine humor to it. You know what I mean? But still, ever so often, the man will drop some gems. Like, yeah, this is how you have to kind of live your life. You have to, not be afraid to go for what's yours, and all that kind of stuff there. But it's just brilliant how the show just kind of takes all these 80s isms and just flip it on its heels. You know what I mean? The action is still, well handled. You know what I mean? Some great fight scenes as well. Once again, you have to suspend your disbelief. Yeah, you have to suspend your
Right.
disbelief, sorry, and
Yeah.
accept that, yes, a kid who could learn how to fight in like about a week, do the whole wax on, wax off, who could paint a wall and all that kind of, sorry, paint a fence and all that, could eventually hold his own against a man who basically wants to beat his ass to death. It's that type of show, right? But it embraces it. It's silly when it needs to be, but when it comes to those fight scenes, yeah, they actually really well done, man. Acting is great, like shockingly great, I would say, especially from the two leads themselves. That would be William Samka and Ralph Macchio. Like you
Right.
think, oh, because they old, they don't really have it anymore, but no, you still buy into them being those characters they remember from the 80s. And yes, they do the whole flashback stuff you'll see from the old movies. Uh, Speaking of the old movies, though, they do something pretty interesting. Was something I was looking forward to, but I didn't expect it. But I was like, glad they did. And they actually reference part two. Well, more two than they reference two and three, right? But they do more of two because what happens through some circumstances, I don't want to say, Daniel actually goes to Okinawa, right?
Right.
And
Right.
he actually meets the girl that he was in love with up there, and the
Right. Right.
guy
Right.
who
Yeah. She was.
wanted to steal her from him shows back up again. But they do
Right.
something really smart now where the same guy who wanted to kill Daniel, he get ass wash. Was just like, well, that was in the past, but I'm gonna teach you something that Miyagi never taught you, right? So another thing the show really does very well is just show that, yeah, through passage of time, people change. You're not going to be the same villain from before, but you get the flip side of that now with John Kreese's character because he just want to be the bad guy, right?
Right.
Last thing I just want to say before I get to read it too, but the main surprise though was seeing Daniel's former well, basically the reason why the rivalry between Daniel and Johnny started in the first place. Elizabeth Shue. Yeah, her
Right,
character
right, right,
shows
right.
back
Yeah,
up
yeah.
in this one. And here it makes absolute sense, right? So, slight spoiler, um it's basically Johnny reaching out to her through Facebook because in season two he mentions, I think it's season two or what he mentions, yeah, she on Facebook, but I just never, well, I just never got. I sent a friend request, but I just never got it, received basically. But yeah, I mean that Johnny, who still has feelings for her, was just like, well, let me try a thing there. So yeah, she kind of comes in and they just have like this little dinner, and then she brings up this serious point there because yes, surprise, surprise, Daniel shows up in the same place that they are in, right? And she just kind of brings up this serious point, and it more or less connects to the theories that many a YouTube video mentioned, about Daniel being the antagonist more
Yeah, 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 yeah. A lot
than
of
John.
people say that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That's like
basically
a
say,
common. I remember who it is who made that. I think it's Zach Morris's Trash Guy. I think he
yeah,
made that
yeah. I
point.
remember
Yeah,
that. I
I
remember
think
him
it's that.
saying that. Yeah.
What's that guy's name? Dashiell Driscoll. He made that point
Sorry.
here.
Just repeat that.
Dashiell Driscoll. I think that's the guy's name. Yeah, I think you have a whole video about that. Yeah, break it down. Like, yeah, Daniel's kind of the asshole in the whole thing, though.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Because when you really think about it, even though, in my opinion, Johnny is the asshole, but Daniel did kind of swoop in and take his guilt, right? Who, well, no longer his guilt anymore, right? But point is, he kind of did, right? But yeah, I just love the fact that she came back and Wallace kind of put them in the place and tell them, well, in a nutshell, it's like they believe, like, all right, so they believe one thing, but then they will kind of do something else, and then there's the truth.
right.
So they kind of see things in one way, but then there's another perspective that all right. So one person sees something one way, next person sees it the other way, and then there's the truth that's right in the middle of them. And it's just a matter of them just kind of putting the egos to rest and realizing, hey, this is why we acted as this way, Trent. So all this stuff about we have to bring down Cobra Kai, we have to bring down the Miyagi-Do, all that stuff. Basically, Elizabeth's character kind of comes in and tells them, no, this is why you all act this way. This is why you've been acting this way for like 3 seasons in, Trent. And I love that. And the way how the season ends, because they do lead to season 4, which hopefully we'll get. It's, I would say, like, how to say it but without spoiling. It's one of those things that diehard fans, or at least people who were watching the show from day one, probably saw coming. But like when it happens, it's like, yes, this needs to happen. This have to happen for the story to move forward anyway. They can't be rivals for so long. You know what I mean? They have to eventually dash, right? That's all I'll
Right.
say. And it works, but just because they make it all 80s right now to play a certain Phil Collins song, that's all I will say. It
Right.
just works. It totally works. So yeah, this season 3 was excellent, and I do see why people were talking about it so much and bragging about, oh, we binged it half a day, oh, it's so awesome, blah, but it
Yeah.
still is a great show. But you have to kind of go in, like, even for me, who isn't the biggest fan of the Karate Kid series, at least what it does, it kind of reminds you why why those movies were so popular in the first place, but how they modernize it works, how they pay tribute to the 80s work. Yes, you have to suspend your disbelief at times. Yes, you will roll your eyes at sometimes. Yes, they do a lot of I love the 80s tribute, in this, but it still works the way. It has a lot of heart, has a lot of charm, and brilliantly though with its 10 episode run, because each episode
Yeah.
is like, sorry, each season is 10 episodes, because
Right.
each one clocks in about a half hour though. You can just run through this whole thing in like about a few hours and not feel bored, not feel weary or anything
Right.
like that.
Pacing.
You'll
Yeah.
have a blast with this run.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, not much more I could say. Retail wise, I'm gonna give this a light 4.5 out of 5. This season really, 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 really lived up to the hype in my opinion. It was perfect that it moved from, well, YouTube Red, to Netflix. That was like the perfect call right there. And yeah, I don't know if we're gonna get a next season from this boy, but where this up off, boy, I am definitely excited to see where the saga goes next way. But
Right.
I recommend, you know, me giving this show a look. You don't even have to watch the. You just have to be familiar with at least the first movie, right? Because the show itself will kind of tell you, well, this is what happened and this is why and all that kind of stuff. But you don't need to be diehard fans of the trilogy or the series to love this show. Because yeah, I mean, I respect the Karate Kid movies, but not the biggest fan, right? But this is what you're supposed to do with material like that if you were to make a show out of it, right? And yeah, not much more I could say.
Okay, cool.